unos sabecitos. Guap, guap, guap. Fist up today. Fist up today. Oh, fins up, baby. Miami, stand up. This is Fins Talk today. Let's go. Sun up over there. Game day on the brain. From the tailgate smoke to the hard count rain. Orange aqua on my back. Crowd shaking every seat. We talking ball, talking heat. Turn it up, feel that beat. Fins talk today. Fins talk today. Fins up all day from the 305. We ride that way. Boy, Fins talk. Fins Sammy on the way. Miami, vamos. It's Fins talk today. Hey, hey, hey. It's Fins talk today. Who you reppin'? Who you riding? Miami. Who you riding? Dolphins. We break it down, break it live. Every snap, every drive. Hey, Fins talk today. Fins up all day from the 305. We ride that way. Fins talk. Fins Sammy on the way. Miami, vamos, vamos. It's Fins talk today. Hey, hey, hey. Fins talk today.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome, Fins fans, to Fins Talk today here on FTSN. I'm Bobby Fins Talk, joined always by Fins Sammy of Fins TV. Of course, Fins Talk today, powered by FTSN and Fins TV, sponsored by CanesWear. And talking about CanesWear, we got the voice of CanesWear TV in the house because we're going to be spotlighting the Miami Hurricanes today. And reason being, because maybe a few of them are going to end up on the Miami Dolphins. So we're going to get Mr. Geo of CanesWear on here in just a minute. Let's see here. Let's pop this in here. Let's get the man of the hour, the man with the power, the VIP. Geo, my man. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Doing well. How you doing, Bobby?
Man, brother, I'm doing really good. Thank you so much to take the time out of your busy schedule to pop in here with us and, talk about the Canes, talk about the Dolphins, talk about the draft, which I know everybody's excited for, as it's an important draft all the way around. But, man, so many very good, great Canes in this draft class. I mean, throughout the board. If you're doing mock drafts, like all of us do, like 1,000 mock, every round there's a Cane in there, and you're like, ooh, I want to grab them. And there's no one that knows the Canes better than you, Geo. I'm sure of that. There are a lot of good people in this community. But, man, when I hear you, it's like dropping knowledge. It's like Einstein talking about science, So, my man, I'm so excited to have you on here. Just to get it going here, let's talk about what you got going on. CanesWear TV, you guys are killing it. And I'll tell you, everyone, if you love the Miami Hurricanes, if you love great Canes content and information, we talk about CanesWear the shop all the time. But got to talk about CanesWear TV. With Geo and Brett and Mondo and the crew. Geo, talk about CanesWear TV. What do you guys got going on with the new channel and what people could see over there?
Yeah, so everyone can watch us multiple times a week on there. You can find it at youtube.com/CanesWear. I'm on there with Brett and Mondo, as you mentioned. I also do individual show as well with the former All-American wide receiver himself, Amon Richards, who played for the Miami Hurricanes as well. We got a new show coming up in, I think it's about a month or 2 months from now, with another former player who was an All-American and a top 5 NFL draft pick. So that's coming very, very soon. So a lot of exciting stuff there. And aside from that, I do appearances on other shows as well, like here or Locked on Canes, Comics on Canes, 305 Sports now. So just spreading all the love around.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, 305 Sports Now. Will Patrone, our friend of the channel as well. He'll be on our live draft coverage this weekend, draft weekend. He'll be on Saturday for day 3 for sure. He'll be on a couple times, and I'll be on his show tomorrow. So shout out. I mean, if you love Canes content, there's another one for you right there, man. Will does some great work. Geo, man, obviously worked with you and Brett, but worked with you for about this past season. And I can't speak highly enough of you, the work you put in, how much you care about what you do, not just with Canes, but content creation as well. I mean, you just said all the stuff you do, and that's not oh, I do that once in a while. I do that, here to no, that's every freaking day. I mean, everybody talks about me, Bobby. How many shows do you do a week? Because I'm doing Dolphins and Marlins and Heat and Hurricanes and Hialeah and all this whatnot. But you are like, you're all over the place. So shout out to you and the work you do. I know a lot about you because we got to talk a little bit on the side behind the scenes about personal stuff. But I want to get to know you a little more, and our audience get to know you a little more because we know you as the Canes guy. Pro football. What's your team? How did that all start? Like, how did you start getting into the Canes? But do you follow the Dolphins? Who's your pro team?
So I've never actually had a pro team. I've always wanted Miami to do well, though. I've never had a favorite NFL team. I've had pseudo favorite teams, like, if a lot of Hurricanes play on a team, I really like them. Like the Ravens, they had some moments like that. There's other franchises around the league as well. The Colts, when they had Edgerrin James and Reggie Wayne, but never had a true favorite NFL team. So I just watch it maybe a little more objectively. I think Miami's a great franchise. I think it's a great city. I was born and raised here. 33 years now, coming up this July. I've seen plenty with the Dolphins. I was just talking about it with Brett earlier today as we were talking about the early 2000 Dolphins team when they had Fiedler and Ricky Williams and those guys and Surtain and Sam Madison. I remember those teams because my two older brothers, they were really big Dolphin fans, especially my oldest brother. He was a huge Ricky Williams guy. So never had a favorite NFL team. But how I got into covering the Canes, though, I always had a passion for them since I was young. I'm talking about 6, 7 years old. I was really into them. And I was on a totally different career path. Long story short of it, one day I was on a forum called Canes Insight. The owner, he told me, he's like, hey, you're really knowledgeable. You pretty much know what you're talking about. Would you like to write? Would you like to talk about things? And, it started as a passion. Then worked at some other places like Sports Illustrated, Yahoo. Worked at Life Wallet for some time. If people in South Florida know what that is, they're really big in the NIL scene. And now, just kind of individual now for a couple of years now, and doing a lot of stuff with CanesWear as well. So long story short of it, though, it went from a passion thing to a part-time thing to a full-time now. Let's say going on 5 or 6 years now doing this full-time. So blessed to be able to do it, though.
Amen, man. That's cool stuff. And that team is my team. That's the one I grew I watched the Dolphins from a very early age, but the team that I remember that I have fond memories of, because people talk, they'll talk about Fiedler signing. I'm sure Sammy, because Sammy will say the years before that, and Sammy will get in there. But for me, Jay Fiedler, Ricky Williams, Randy McMichael, Chris Chambers, Aronde Gadsden, yes, Tim Bowens, Gardner, Surtain, Madison, Marion, that was the team. I love that team, and I love that logo. That's my favorite. Okay, you don't really have an NFL team, but you followed the Dolphins, so I'm going to have to ask you, because it always is a debate. What is your favorite Dolphins uniform? Are you an old school guy? Are you a cartoon Dolphin guy? Or do you like the kind of the artsy Dolphin now?
I like the old school. I also like the older logo as well. I'm not so big on the new one. I think tradition's very big, so I'm on that. Yeah.
Sammy, man, just talk about that 2000s Dolphins. What are some of your fond memories of that team? I mean, was it Dave Wannstedt? Was Jimmy? You love Jimmy Johnson, right? That's a Canes legend, right? So, what do you think about that 2000 team, Sammy?
I used to love those teams because of course they found a way to basically build a team. They had a not to knock on Jay Fiedler, but they had a better team probably. They would have had a better run. And it's Ricky Williams. I remember what I was when I got the news that Ricky Williams basically was quitting. So that team had a lot of potential, but there was a run. Ricky went straight to that wall for a whole season. Ricky, wanted out. He wanted to do other things, but the punishment he took was so much. But those teams were great. Dara Gardner, Tim Bowens, Surtain and Madison, and Brock Marion, Sean Wood, and so many others. So it was a great team. There's ones that basically the last coach to win a playoff game for the Dolphins. So that still goes to the annals of history. So those teams were great. The problem was that they did not have enough firepower at quarterback to get into the playoffs. So in this type of age in the NFL, they probably would have run the ball better and would have had an even better chance with that defense. But they probably were ahead of the time. So it's sad, but my favorite team, of course, are the Dan Marino years. The Dan Marino years with the prime, with those late, those late '80s, early '90s. Those teams were great, but the Buffalo Bills were too good at that time of their era, so they could not do too much. And I remember what I was with Dan Marino on the Achilles. They had a lot of hope for that season. So it's been a rough patch for the Dolphins. So, but for you, Gio, that covers the Canes after a long hiatus of the Dolphins, basically being in ACC and finding a way to where the Canes are going to come back, and so many people around the nation basically saying that the Canes had no chance to come back in this new era of football. Should be great for you to basically have the Canes back in this era, right?
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you, my man. It is some tough years. I remember some people even asking the question, they're like, oh man, what does it feel like covering a program that, they're not like at the top? But I think it's so gratifying to watch that climb. Like I watched it all since Cristobal first got to Miami, and just the difference in the body types and everything they've done since they've arrived here. It's just night and day difference.
They're monsters now.
Yeah, it's incredible. They got a whole factory going on in Coral Gables right now. Just trenches, like defensive linemen, offensive linemen, even the skill positions now. They're really up there now with the top tier. It's exciting. It's exciting. It was a long time coming. And look, I'll even say it to Dolphins fans. I like to have this saying, never say never. Never say never. Things could change with the right situation.
Yeah. No, 100%, 100%. And so, for me, what's coming, I love Christmas morning. I still love Christmas morning. Even as a kid, we all get excited about the next day. And, yes, praise God, but, we all were ready for that, open those presents. And I will say what equals that for me is draft day, Gio. I love college football. I love watching college, but I was always a pro guy. I love the pros. I love the Dolphins. For you, it's right. You're a Canes guy or college, but pros are there. And so this week is so important for every team in the league, but for fans, especially because you're going to get new players, fresh faces, man. But, other years, in recent years past, there were some Canes that came out that I was excited about, but then end up in Miami. But this year seems to be different. This year, there are so many Canes in this draft class. I've been accused of bias because I say, oh, Mauanoa in round 1, Markel Bell, Jacoby Thomas, Keontae Scott. I'm throwing all these names, and you're only saying that because you love that. Well, yeah, sure, but no, but these are some damn good football players.
Yeah.
I want to start off with the big dog. I mean, obviously, Ruben Bain. We're going to get into Ruben Bain in a second. But Mauanoa, French Mauanoa out of Miami, of course, offensive tackle. I'll say offensive lineman because he's versatile. And then you got Spencer Fanu, who's really good as well out of Utah. And the reports coming out of Miami is that Miami loves both these guys, and they could be leaning this way at pick 11. So I want to talk to you because, yes, when it comes to Miami Hurricanes, you are the expert in the room. But I've heard you talk multiple teams. So I'm going to trust your word on this. You talk about Spencer Fanu, that dude's a dog as well. But talk to me about these two guys, but, talk to me about Mauanoa and how he could be a pro. Can he translate into the pros as good as he was in college? Come into the pros. Can he play right tackle? There's been talk about moving him out into guard if he doesn't start a tackle right away. Talk to me about this guy. If it comes down to Mauanoa and Fanu, should Miami go Mauanoa?
I think they should absolutely go with Mauanoa. Just the body of work speaks for itself. Starting since very first game at the collegiate level. He was starting since like his first spring practice. He was just undeniable. Did he have like growing pains when he first got to Miami at the University of Miami? Yeah, every true freshman does. They go through those little patches like that. But in terms of like positional versatility, I think that's something that he has upside on compared to Fano, that he can shift inside if it doesn't work at tackle. I do think he can play right tackle at the NFL level. I think he would be fine there. I don't think he's a left tackle, though. I think he's just purely either right tackle or he plays one of the guard spots. I don't think he's a left tackle. The other thing, just in terms of getting uphill, like within the run game, one of the biggest assets that Mauanoa has. And I think Miami specifically, if they decide to hold on to a back who's special and H-N, you want to build up front. Obviously, you want to build up front for your run game, and not only for your run game, but number one, your quarterback, whoever the quarterback will be down the line or whatever happens with Malik Willis. But you want to build from the inside out. I think that blueprint has been there in the NFL. You see it with college, like what Nick Saban did at Alabama, what Mario Cristobal is doing at Miami, what Kirby Smart did at Georgia. It all starts from within. So I'm with you guys. I think they should go offensive line at number 11. Now, in terms of Fano, before the season started, you spoke to many draft nicks before this past season, and many will probably tell you they thought Fano was the top overall guy. But Malinois just has so much tape out there against great competition too, that it's kind of hard to deny that he's the de facto number one. I mean, you look at the situation of like Ruben Bain with, David Bailey and some of these other guys. Yeah, there could be some debates, but I think Malinois is the clear-cut number one, and I think teams have been treating him that way as well. So I think he's more power than the finesse that Fano has. I do think Fano has more ability to play left tackle if needed, but that's just my take on it. I would take Malinois.
First off, I love that take, and you're right, because Fano was the guy when we were. This will be our 4th year covering the draft live. The Dolphins live draft coverage show, which is sponsored by CanesWear, will be live again for the 4th year. And we don't just start during the draft season; we start right away after the season. We start watching more film, and we'll get in. And Fano was that guy. We were like, Fano's good. We love the movement, athleticism. Yeah, and you could again move around. You'd be left side, right side, inside. But as the season went along, again, to your point, especially being that I'm watching him every game, it's hard not to see Malinois, and you're like, damn, and you love his attitude, you love everything about him. He's a gamer, he's a dog. You want that. So I agree with you on everything you're saying, and I know people will say that could be biased because we're Canes guys, but it's kind of a little more than that. And I'm not. I would again, Miami comes away with any one of these two guys, I'm ecstatic. You're doing the right. You came away with Patrick Paul a couple years back. Patrick Paul's done great for you. Aaron Brewer. You need to figure out what's going to happen with Savanea. I think he needs to be moved to the right side, but he should compete for that guard spot at the right side. You need to get a starting guard at the left side, and then you got Austin Jackson, who should not get the automatic start. I would put him competition against either one of these two guys, and if Jackson surprises or overcomes them, then you got a starting guard in one of these two gentlemen. I'm going to put a little test to you, though, because both of these guys I know we love. Ruben Bain, Malinois. You're at 11. You're Miami. Who are you taking?
I think it all starts with the offensive line. As much as big of a Ruben Bain guy I am, I think you have to go offensive line with, especially with how the Dolphins are trying to rebuild everything and just structure everything correctly. The one other thing I do want to share, though, on Malinois, I've seen several offensive linemen in my life, like up close and everything. Never have I seen an offensive lineman with a physique that Francis Malinois has. Like, most guys, like they're very heavy, they're not necessarily like built very well. This guy has like a wrestler's type of build. Like he's just naturally strong, just not, I guess the word I'm looking for is not sloppy, the body type as an offensive lineman. Some offensive linemen, they may have a gut or whatever the case may be, but this guy just barrel chested, no tummy. Like to me, he's a freak athlete. Like I know some people say like, oh, how could you say an offensive lineman's a freak athlete? He's a freak athlete at his size. He's like 6'5", 6'6" range, 320 pounds. And the way he's built is just almost abnormal at that size.
Sammy, any thoughts?
Well, from the outside, because I'm, you guys are the Hurricanes guys. I support everything in Miami. I support the Canes, but there've been rumors. This happens every time during draft time. Rumors about Malinois is back. Unsustained because no one is just being able to prove that. Ruben Bain, all of a sudden, that report about the second car crash, the car crash and whatever. So we can expect this during the draft. The bluffs, the stuff, the scandals. The positioning, what is true, what is not. But Bobina has talked so many times about the teams and the Dolphins. Every single team has a security area where they check this kind of stuff. They know what's true or what's not. They have a medical area where they know what's true or it's not. But how do you think those things affect race really right now? Because both Malanoa and Ruben Bain both had, questions coming to the draft. Do you think they're going to be affected by those late rumors that usually happen the 2 weeks before the draft?
I think maybe it pushed some teams away from Ruben Bain. There's plenty of teams that have done their homework, like the Saints and the Chiefs. I think, if Ruben Bain is there at 9 and Kansas City doesn't see, I think Kansas City is going to take that approach of taking the best available. Mm-hmm. And I think Ruben Bain, if he makes it to 9, he probably will get taken there. They've been very transparent with him. He's the guy they really want. But I don't think it's going to affect Francis, though. Francis, it's not like a major issue that he had, just like with the disc in the back and everything, just nothing major with that. As a matter of fact, I think it's funny that the Draftniks haven't talked about like the shoulder stuff. Actually, he had a couple of shoulder injuries at Miami, and they never really brought that up. He recovered totally fine from them, though. So he actually played 1 year with a messed up labrum as well. Actually, he was totally fine out there. So this is a tough guy. I don't think it'll affect his draft status. Ruben Bain's situation, though, that's a little up in the air. I think could he still go top 10 or in that range? Yeah, but could it scare some teams? I think so.
Geo, you know what I'm afraid of, man? And you said a little earlier about, back in the day when you had Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, I see what's going on with Bain, and we're going to get to Bain right now. But I absolutely love him. And again, if Mount Noah somehow goes higher and Bain is there at 11, I agree with you. I'm a trenches guy. You're good. You may laugh. Okay. This is what I say a lot of things, and I don't know when I'm saying them. And I've said drink leche and I got in trouble. All right. I talk about, but when I talk about my trenches, I talk about girth. Okay. I need that girth. All right. I need big, tall, thick dudes. Okay. And I didn't realize what I was saying until I said it, but I'm going to stick with it, brother. You know what I mean? I'm just going to roll with it, but, so I am a trenches guy, but there are some guys later on in the draft that if you don't get a Mount Noah or a Fanu, you could probably look on later on. With edge rushers, though, there's some okay. There's Zion Young, Malachi Lawrence out of Central Florida. Falk. We see Falk in there, but I still think that once you get past that point of Bailey and Bain, it drops a little bit. It kind of falls a little bit. So if Bain is sitting there at 11, I'm banging the table for Ruben Bain. To me, I know I've heard a lot. Oh, alligator arms. We've had we hear about in 24 the issue with the accident, and I get that. But I'm going to speak as a fan, but I know you can speak a little better, but also just somebody who watches film. I see a playmaker. I see a guy who makes a difference. This is the type of guy you want in your locker room, that when another team is saying, oh, like what happened in this last year's playoffs for the Canes, teams are saying, oh, we got them or whatever. They throw them under their, and he's somebody kind of like back with the Patriots. When you say something negative, they're going to take note. All right, you said what you said, and then we're going to make you pay for it. That's what Bain does. He holds that other team accountable, and he holds his team accountable. That's a guy you want in your locker room. He's a tone setter. So my fear is this: if he does go past the Chiefs, if somehow Miami says we don't want to touch him, I could see him ending up in Baltimore and having an unbelievable career. That's my fear. You said that earlier, and I'm like, ooh, that's what I'm worried about. But let's talk about Ruben Bain, because I had messaged you a week ago or a couple weeks back, because I got reached out and hey, there's something going on. Have you heard anything? And I said I have not heard anything, but I'm going to go to a trusted person that I do know. And again, this is a plug for Geo. You guys want to see Geo? You want to get in on your Cane stuff? CanesWear TV with Geo. Go. There's his handle on Twitter. Go check him out. But you told me too. You're like, Bobby, outstanding citizen, works within the community, great guy. Now this stuff comes out about the accident. What have you heard about that? What have you heard about? Talk about Ruben Bain as you know him, and then what you've heard recently, and where he stands in the draft. You just brought up the Chiefs possibly throwing a bone at him, saying, "Hey, we really like you." What's going on with Ruben Bain?
Yes. So in terms of the whole car accident situation and everything, several NFL teams were already like aware of that situation. That's come out within the reports as well. So I also think it was a little bit of like a little bit of a hit piece that was done on Bain in terms of that, the writer that did so. Even some NFL draft nicks have come out. I think Todd McShay said the same thing too. It's like, this is ridiculous. Like these teams already knew. They already knew about this and everything, like majority of the teams. It was kind of like a shot at his character. Look, I actually had the chance to work directly with Ruben Bain when I worked at Life Wallet in the past, because he was one of the NIL athletes there. Worked with him for about a year and some change. And I also covered him when he was in high school at Miami Central. High character guy. And what I mean by a high character guy, very involved within the community. He's always doing his own charity. As a matter of fact, there is a Christmas toy drive that happens at one of the Hurricanes team stores down there in Coral Gables that Bain has always participated in since he's arrived at Miami. Like he goes and spends time with the kids and donates toys and everything for children of need. These are just little things that I'm throwing out here. He's also done backpack drives as well for going back to school for kids in need. He's very much about his community, very much so. So the car accident thing, look, I'm going to be honest. It's never a great thing when someone passes away. However, accidents do happen. Things do happen. The tragic events do happen. So I don't think it should be held against the guy, because even the own family of the woman that had tragically passed away, they had said, look, we are wishing the absolute best for Ruben in his continued career and everything. We're wishing him all the success going forward. This is a situation that was like, this is not like this past year. It was like 2 years ago that this happened. This has already been resolved among both parties. It's not an ongoing thing. I think it was unfair to his character, the way it was even portrayed, like first put out there, like the tweet before even seeing the article. It seemed like there was just a certain angle that Connolly was going with. I'm just being honest here. Look, is it going to affect his draft status? Yeah, some teams may get a little scared and whatnot, but a majority of teams were already aware of this. And the funny thing too is, I want to know who Connolly's sources are, because he also shared that a source told him that, we're worried about like the other things that haven't come out yet. Look, as far as I know, there's no other things. It was that. There was another person who was involved in that accident that ended up leaving Miami and whatnot. There's just so much behind it. He's not a bad character guy. Like for example, Notre Dame fans said during the season, they're thugs and this and that. Ruben Bain is a good guy. I worked with him hand in hand for like a year and a half. Saw him at practice, saw him at events. He's not going to be a problem off the field. He's not.
I love that you said that, because that's just the follow-up. Because again, it is a tragedy. Someone died, but as you said, it's not negating it or downplaying it. It is a tragedy, but also to say people make mistakes. We've all made mistakes. The main thing would be too, and it goes for NFL teams. And I think general manager John Eric Sullivan had brought up about certain players. He didn't name anybody by name, but he was saying, was like, when you're looking at a guy, we all make mistakes. He made mistakes. We all make mistakes. But you're looking at, does he make the same mistakes? What is the pattern? And he wasn't talking about Bain could have, but he never mentioned anybody. And that's one thing I thought of right away with Ruben Bain. And because again, when I was do you know anything? I have not heard anything on Ruben Bain negative about anybody within the community. And reached out to you, and you emphasize that, and I trust your word. And because that's the thing, like if this was a continuous thing where, he had a hiccup here, that should disqualify him from a team. That's when the team should say, that's a problem for me. An incident, that's a one-time occurrence. I can imagine a team going, now maybe the owner would step in and said, I don't want that. But I could see a team like the Baltimore Ravens, like the New England Patriots, whatever, one of those organizations who say, you know what, he's falling, grab him. Oh my God. And then we got Dolphin fans or fans that 10 years from now going, how the hell did we pass up on Ruben Bain? It happens all the time. yes, God, and again, God bless it. I feel, it's a tragedy, but this is a one-time thing. And again, you being someone who's dealt with him personally and worked with him here, and you could speak to, you could say, and I know you would say, yeah, he's a great football player, but he's kind of has, issue, he's a little attitude, blah, blah, blah. You throw that out there. You're not. That's why, again, for me, I saw this. I hated it. I agree with you. I think the way it was worded, it was really to kind of knock him down a peg or two.
Yeah.
But I feel like this, I would be ecstatic if this guy was the pick for Miami. Sammy, what are you thinking about Ruben Bain? You saw the stuff that came out. You actually said about Mano earlier about the back stuff comes out. We all know this. You don't have to be covering the NFL or Dolphins or Hurricanes or anybody to know that during draft season, stories come out because other teams want players to fall. So, Sammy, when you saw the news come out, because, I'll ask you this. You hear about the alligator arms. His arms are too short, which I think is lowish anyway. But arms are too short. Now you hear about the accident. Are you personally like, yeah, I'm cool with Ruben Bain. I would go David Bailey here. I'd go Kendrick Falk or get an edge rusher later. Did this eliminate Ruben Bain for you as an option for the Miami Dolphins?
First of all, the Dolphins are picking at 11. If I had the first overall pick of the draft, that's kind of different. But the Dolphins are picking at 11, so I can have some leverage. I had 2 picks, of course. Jeff Hafley and Sullivan is the first pick, so it's a foundational pick. So everything matters. You have to take that into consideration that when they evaluate a player right now, that's the player that's going to define the rest of their careers, because that's the first overall pick they have. So it's not the first overall pick in the draft, but still counts as a very high pick. So there's different rules for better players. If a player can play, if he's good, if he's outstanding, he's going to end up being an all-pro, all NFL team. What happened in the past, yeah, that's in the past. When you have questions like the thing with the arms, that kind of things, when those things match each other, that's when someone might start to fall, because now you have questioning the character on the past, and the arms and the productivity and the size, that those things mix each other, and then that's why it may cause a slide, because if one or the other happened, and he had a great player, and the arm thing wasn't a thing, I can bet no one would care. Jerry Jones will be jumping all the way to number 3 to pick him. He doesn't care. If he's a player they want, he doesn't care. So that's where I'm worried. I don't think that basically the things that happen are going to define his career. But for Sullivan, who basically is the first pick of the foundation, is a foundational piece, he has to take everything into consideration. And B, more teams might be worried about the size of the player that would happen in the past. So he might slide because of the combination of the two things. But if he slides to the Dolphins at 11, that means 8 teams already pass on him. And he should not be a player at the 8 teams pass on him. The level of competition that he played, all the way to the national championship by himself, and who had an impact, huge impact, should say a lot. So he's a football player. That's undeniable. So I don't expect for him to fall to the Dolphins at 11 for sure. I expect it will be, extremely shocking if he falls all the way to the Dolphins at 11. Yeah, please go ahead, Theo.
I'll say one thing. Like, I think the biggest thing too is, like, let's say, because I don't know if Bain will fall past Kansas City. They've been very transparent like that. They love him. They absolutely love him. But let's say the off chance it is that he does go past 9, that he slides even more. And let's say, Dolphins there at 11. Schematically, to me at least, because I know the Dolphins are going to be running a 4-3 scheme going forward, I think he's a phenomenal fit for a system like that, because he has the ability to play on the edge. He could play on the inside as a 3 technique. He could play either edge spot as well. I just think like that versatility and that type of chess piece to have out the gate on a defensive line, it's really fun for a defensive coordinator to have, honestly.
Yeah.
But I'm with you though, that I think you do bring up a great point. Like, it's a foundational piece, like that first pick, like as GM and head coach of the franchise. That, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, Sammy.
He wants to play safe. They might try to play it safe. One more question, Bob, if I may.
Yeah.
When you've seen so many Canes, so many games, I think the Canes had the most the highest number of players to be all pro in the NFL, something like that. The Canes for years and years, all the way from the 90s, so many first round picks, so many great players. But when you see a player like Ruben Bain, is there someone you can go to the past history of the Canes that you can compare him to, or he's one of a kind in the history of the Canes? So is there someone you see, he reminds me of so and so who was a great player for the Canes?
Attitude wise, just the way he is on the field, like a Jerome Brown. Like, as a matter of fact, I have this exact quote that Ruben Bain said to me himself, because he's very reserved off the field. Like he's just very quiet, calm guy. He's not looking for any trouble or anything.
In Miami, that's good.
And he said this before. He said, "But yeah, when I'm on that field, there's just something there's just a switch." And I become a totally different person when I'm on that field.
I like that.
I think you need guys like that, the guys that are smart and balanced off the field, but then when they get on the field, they just play like a savage. That's what he is.
Yeah, I like that. I love that, Bobby. That's the kind of play the Dolphins have been missing. We talk about attitude,
I want to ask
character.
you guys a question, though, on pick number 11 for the Dolphins, because I've seen many Dolphins fans talk about it, like, Tyreek gone, Waddle gone now to the Broncos. Obviously, Miami doesn't have any receiver, at least from their program, that's eligible right now. I mean, I'm sure Dolphins fans would love if Malachi Tony could go to the NFL right now. They would absolutely love that. But I do think it's a good to decent receiver class this year. However, I don't think the receiver class is good enough to be taking someone at number 11. I think the receiver class is so much better next year.
Yeah. So
I agree.
I'll say I've talked about this. I actually just talked about this yesterday on our draft show, the FinStar draft show. Because a lot of people, because right away you get Tyreek is gone and Waddle's gone, and there's a lot of people projecting Miami to go receiver. Miami showed a lot of interest in a lot of receivers. I mean, they have met with Tyson, they've met with Mekhi Lemon, and I'm not ignoring any of those guys. Those guys could be good football players, but you could, I don't know if any one of them would be good enough to take at 11 with the talent that's there, unless all these guys are gone. Bain, Manoa, Fanu, Bailey, whomever, if like Delane, if Downs, if all those guys are, then you got to settle, you settle. But I don't feel comfortable taking one of the top 3 guys at 11. If you trade down, that's a different conversation. Yeah. Mekhi Lemon, I know, size. Mekhi Lemon probably is, for me, I think, he has that dog mentality. He's smart, knows where to put his feet down, plays big, yards after the catch. I understand why Miami's shown so much interest in him. When you talk about later on in the draft, that's where I feel more comfortable. Even in round 2, if you go round 2, if Denzel Boston out of Washington is still there, Chris Bell out of Louisville, Geo, we know him pretty damn well. I mean, I love that kid. I think that kid has a potential to be one. Chris Brazel out of Tennessee. You go further down, Bryce Lance and Ted Hurst.
Rat from Indiana.
That's right. And a guy, again, you just brought up Malachi Tony. I love Malachi Tony. Again, you're talking about second coming maybe of Tyreek. I don't want to put that on him, but again, that's what I see when I see him play. We got Jeremiah Smith next year too. But talking about Miami and talk about receivers, a lot to me, who was an unsung hero with Miami's offense last year, who doesn't get enough credit, at least outside of Miami, is CJ Daniels, who's friends with Malik Willis, who Malik Willis kind of banged the table for. So, that's a guy. I'm with you. I'm not going to hate on any of those 3 guys, but I'm with you in regards of I'm okay waiting on a receiver at 11. We don't need a receiver at 11. You could get a pretty damn good one in this draft. It's a little thick at receiver. It's not what next year is going to be. We know that. But you could get 2 or 3 good ones in this draft with Miami, especially having 11 picks. But now that I brought up CJ Daniels, what are your thoughts on Daniels going into the pros? Could he, and he's an older rookie. He'll be an older rookie. How do you think he'll translate going into next year?
Well, he's got very strong hands, and you can see it with the ridiculous catches that he's made throughout his career, especially at Miami. Can move the chains very well. Not the most explosive receiver, but doesn't waste a lot of motion in terms of getting in and out of his breaks in as a route runner as well. I think he's one of those guys that, someone will take a chance on him late, like a 6th, 7th round guy, like a fringe guy like that. But I do see him getting drafted by a team because he's gotten plenty of interest, and he's played a lot of college football games. He's played a lot of college football in general. He's a good, solid player. I could definitely see him making an NFL team. I like him. Honestly, I like CJ Daniels. I like several of the other guys that Miami has for this draft class. This is going to be their strongest draft class probably since the 2014 team that they had that had Duke Johnson and 5 offensive linemen that played in the NFL and other guys with that group. That team underachieved so much. This team did not underachieve. They've really left it all out there on the field. But like guys like even speaking about like the Dolphins, you mentioned Delane as well. Like I know the Dolphins have a 2nd round pick. Keontae Scott, like he's hovering in that 2nd round range right now. Is that someone that the Dolphins could look at? I think, you asked me, I think he's a 1st round talent, Keontae Scott, but you know, it is what it is. You know, that teams view things the way they want to view it. But I think the nickel position is so important now in football in general because of how much just offenses are spreading things out. And not only just like spreading things out, but the fact that Keontae Scott's like a pseudo linebacker on the field, like you're still able to get that benefit of having a 3rd linebacker on the field, like when you run a 4-3 in that 4-2-5, because of his ability to play the run. Several other guys, like we spoke about the Dolphins building from the inside out. Markel Bell, like I'm sure he's going to be there, like 3rd, 4th round range. Freakish athleticism. He hasn't hit anywhere of his ceiling yet. He was actually contemplating coming back to Miami for another year. That didn't end up happening. Who knows what he could have been in the next draft, like projection wise. But I think there's a lot of intriguing pieces. And I didn't even bring up Akeem Mesidor. Let's say Miami doesn't go trenches with pick 11, which I think they should. They should go O-line or D pick 11. But let's say they don't. Let's say they decide to do a skill position like a cornerback. I wouldn't have any gripes if they take Delane from LSU if they decide at 11. I think he's a very good prospect. But let's say they even pass on him. Round 2, you got Jermod McCoy, who's injury concerns but still supremely talented, or Keontae Scott. But sticking to the theme of Akeem Mesidor, though, and that 2nd pick the Dolphins have in the 1st round. Let's say at 11, they go skill position. I think Akeem Mesidor could be still there in that range. A lot of his projections have been, 22 and beyond, somewhere within that range.
So I just, first off, this is how I know we're right here, Gio, because I had that all there. I'm like, these are the guys. Because again, with Markel Bell, I'm so intrigued by Markel Bell and the ceiling he has. And every mock draft, when I see him sitting there, I'm like, damn. I'm like, I'd love to see him as, again, even if you take Malinois, and I know, you're being about to take Malinois, if Markel Bell was there in one of your 4 third-round picks, you could grab him because you still want to stack up your line because Malinois might be your starting guard, and Bell, you could move probably, he's a little raw. He still has some potential for growth. I could see him plug and play at right tackle, possibly. In Mesidor, first of all, again, let's say you don't go Bain at 11 or in Mesidor's there at 30. That's hard not to pass up on. Again, older rookie, right? We know that, right? I think he's 24. We're going on 25 years old now. But if you look at his numbers, and first, if you watch the film, you watch the games, you see a playmaker, you see a guy who could get to the quarterback. That matters in this league, especially in the pros. But again, you look at the numbers. There's a lot of guys that when you look at their numbers, and you shouldn't always do that. You want to watch what you see on film. But you see guys like, 30 less tackles, 1.5 sacks, or whatever, and then they have a big year after, and then they'll get drafted higher, and then they have they're flatline in the pros. Mesidor is somebody, if you look at the numbers, he has consistently put up the numbers with and without Ruben Bain. This is the thing about Ruben Bain, having someone like Bain. He does open up opportunities for the other players on that line. But Mesidor has done good with and without. So I think he's a guy who, again, another guy who you can see end up on a good team, and you're like, how the hell did he get past our team? And I'm not just talking Dolphins, I'm talking about any team saying that later down the line. And Keontae Scott, my man, I'm with you. That's another guy. I keep everything. You know, I know a lot of people want to talk about tall corners and everything. He's not small. I mean, was he 5'11", I think. You know, so
yeah, 5'11", yeah.
Yeah, so but he plays big. He's a heavy hitter. He's a guy, and I would say the same thing for Jacoby Thomas later on in the draft. Another guy who is all over the field. Every time you watch them, you know, they're not a guy who quits on the team. They're in every play. They're getting to the quarterback. They're chasing down the fastest receiver. You know, so that's another guy, another name, at least for Miami, possibly, Anez Cooper, offensive guard, another guy in this draft. Talk to me about Cooper and what he could bring, you know, yeah, with Miami, but also just in the pros. You know, this is probably a mid to late round prospect. I think he's going to go higher than late round. If you look at the mock drafts, he's late. I think he could go in that 3rd, 4th round range. What do you think of Anez Cooper going into the pros?
I think because of his pro day, because he was still nursing an injury, I think it might have affected his stock a little bit, at least how NFL teams will see him. Heard some comments coming out of pro day, but mean streak, big time trash talker too. He gets in opponents' heads every single game. The other thing I'll say with him, work ethic is really big with him. The reason why I say really big, this is a guy who used to be like almost 400 pounds. Anez Cooper, yes. He used to be almost 400 pounds when he arrived to Miami and shed so much weight. By the time now leaving Miami, he's 320 pounds. 320 pounds in much better shape. You look at the before and after pictures of when he arrived to Miami as a high school kid to now leaving to the NFL after 4 years being as a starter. He's a 4-year starter. It's incredible. So the work ethic is a big thing that you have to tag on him. It's there. He's willing to put in the work. I think he's one of those guys that probably be late rounds, you know, 6, 7 range, maybe because of that injury that kind of lingered into pro day and whatnot. Maybe even, you know, I've thought about it recently, speaking with some people too, that, you know, what if he doesn't get drafted or whatnot? I think he would be a phenomenal value pick for a team that even off like you know, just free agency right after the draft if he doesn't get picked.
Oh, if a team could get him as a UDFA, I mean, holy crap. I mean, and again, just speaking alone to his work ethic, the weight loss, the work he put in, teams see that. I mean, somebody would see that, and I see that. Man, I know he's going to put the work in. He's going to take care of himself. Or if he does, we know he could get to that point. He's committed. There's a lot of that with these Cane players. I know I brought up Jacoby Thomas. What are your thoughts on Jacoby Thomas?
Exceeded my expectations when he arrived at Miami. I had some question marks about coverage ability. He surpassed those during the season. He was able to create turnovers, heat-seeking missile. You don't have to worry about him wanting and willing to be involved in the run defense as well. He'll come downhill, lay the hammer. He's got a little bit of ability to play some nickel too, but he's more so, you know, a box safety for the most part at the next level. But long as well. He's about like 6'2". I like him. I think at best, maybe 5th round, maybe if someone loves him, 4th round. I think mostly because maybe with that type of guy, you would want a little more athletically, like maybe if he was a bit faster or whatnot, but still a really good prospect overall. And I think a good one even for the Dolphins. I mean, Dolphins, I know they still need to add to the DB room with some changes they've had and some trades, sending some guys out. So I think potentially a good fit for them, especially as like a box safety.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, again, you know, a lot of people talk about corners, and yes, Miami needs corners, and Keontae Scott, you know, I throw in a lot of names there, Julian Neal, Tacario Davis. You know, there's a lot of names out there. Mansour Lane, if you think about 11. I just saw now that Jamon McCoy may have to need another surgery. So that I feel bad for him, because if he was healthy, he would be a #1 guy on the board for most people out of Tennessee. Oh, yeah. But, man, if you could come away with Scott and Thomas, I mean, you got a good say, because you need help at safety for sure. And I think Miami could double dip at safety like they could double dip at receiver and corner and even offensive line. It's probably a good thing they have 11 picks. Another guy, kind of polarizing, right? He's met with Miami a couple times at the scouting combine, obviously pro day. quarterback Carson Beck. So Gio, obviously you've covered him extensively for CanesWear for yourself. I've watched a lot of him, and I always kind of get a side eye because again, I will say I know the flaws. I see the flaws. But I also see a lot of the good too. I will say that I know what happened I still think that final play in the championship was the wrong call. I think they should have just kept dicing it to the side, getting off to the sideline, and then you make the play. I think you had a little time. So that's, I guess, a little more on Cristobal than it is on Beck. But one thing I will say about Beck, and I think it goes for the whole Canes team, but Beck for sure, I saw heart. I saw a guy who even though despite his flaws, he always fought. You know, he made the play with his legs. You know, he went the extra mile. And I know some fans, it's not enough for them, you know, oh, he's this, he's that. But I saw a kid who, like, when the game is on the line, he's going to try his best to make a play. And he's a lot of times he's intelligent, but sometimes he's a firecracker. He'll throw the ball where it's not supposed to be, trying to make a play. So it is what it is. But this is a guy, again, who's actually, a lot of teams have shown interest in him because of his experience in big games in two different offenses. And because of some of the things that are strengths. I know Josh Wingate, co-host on The Clock, the draft show here on FTSN. He's not a big fan of Carson Beck, but he also is a Georgia fan. So there's some hate there. But what are your thoughts on Carson Beck? You know, especially, I would love to know, what are your thoughts after that game? And what do you think he could be as a pro?
Yeah, so after that game and even the throw in itself, I noticed during Miami's postseason run too that, you know, his arm really was getting a little flat. And you kind of noticed the vast difference in it when he got to the combine and had some more rest. And he was able to really flick it downfield much easier than it was for him during the late portion of the season. There was times we spoke about it, at least within the Miami media, even some fans, that, you know, the arm strength wasn't always there. And was it a microcosm of the surgery, you know, just coming back from it, missing so much time? But he seemed like he got better as the year progressed. On the late throw, I think, you know, he thought that he was going to have enough arc on that to get it over the DB's head and just kind of miscalculated that one. I'm sure he would want that one back. He said himself he would love to have that one back. But can't discredit the man for what he did for Miami. I mean, he took them the furthest they've been in a very long time. And anyone who discredits that it wasn't, you know, partially like his responsibility getting Miami to that point, they're crazy. You know, he made a lot of plays along the way. I do think he has deceptive downhill speed as a quarterback. You know, some people think that, oh, you know, he's like a statue or whatever. No, he will tuck his head down and he will go and get those extra yards, and he's willing to. That's the biggest thing, because some quarterbacks, they're not so willing to do that. He does. So to me, smart quarterback, understands systems very well. I think he's one of those like journeyman type of quarterbacks that, you know, maybe not like a superstar, but probably could start some games in the league at some point. Like, let's say a starter goes down, or he comes into a really good situation where, you know, a team drafts a young quarterback, but, you know, they're not really up to snuff what the team thought they would be, and he kind of steps in as the veteran guy. I could see him being that journeyman type of quarterback. I could see him having a long NFL career. Do I think he's a superstar? No, but I think he's a very solid quarterback, and I don't blame several teams for looking at him because of the experience he has. He's played a lot of football over the last like 5 years. He's very well experienced. I think, look, you mentioned how the Dolphins saw him and everything, whatnot. Even if it's not the Dolphins, I think any team that drafts him, they will be happy because, one, at worst, you're getting a solid backup, someone that you can actually put into the game and they can make some things happen, not someone that your whole offense completely just crumbles the moment he comes in.
I love that you said that. I'll say too, because I know there's with King fans, they're still upset with that championship game. I know I'll say Josh being a Georgia guy, but I'll say Josh is also he'll take a step back and tell you why he thinks he shouldn't be taken. I would not be upset personally if let's say it's, you know, let's say the last third round pick, or if somehow he's there in the fifth round and Miami says, you know what, we're going to take him. I wouldn't be upset. I know what I'm getting out of him. again, I don't think he's going to be the starter or he's going to compete for the start, but I think that could be a solid backup for years to come. Sort of like back in the day, Sammy, like a Matt Moore type. He wasn't not very supposed to be a starter, but when you needed one, you got one. And you know that when Beck comes onto the field, you're getting a guy who's going to put the most out there. He's going to do his best with a chip on his shoulder to try to get you the game. So I love that Miami's met with him multiple times. I wouldn't hate for him to be a Dolphin, but I also do believe he's going to be a solid player in the league. Yeah. Starter on occasion. What's that called? Spot starter? Yeah.
Spot starter.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I like the point you made with the journeyman.
He could be like a Nick Foles.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he'll come in for a couple games and you know maybe have the job for a little while and then drop it. But again, like that's what when I see him, I'm not saying type of player, not like by play style, but just the type of player he is. That's what I mean. He reminds me of like a Matt Moore. You know, remember Matt Moore? Every time Matt Moore was, you know, Matt Moore is a career backup, but when he came in and played, you know, he won you some games, and then fans were not crying for it, but banging the table for him. And then when he did, it still lost. But you know, that's what I think Carson Beck could be. Now, we're gonna get into the Dolphins draft in just a second. You know, and I just because I'll get your opinion. Like, hey, these are the guys that I'm looking at. You know, for you know, and it doesn't have to be Canes, it can be other guys. But I want to ask you this: Canes right now. My brother last year was fun. It was a lot of fun. I am so damn ecstatic for next season, Mansa and all the crew. How are you feeling right now about the team that's coming? I think you know, they got spring camp starting, or did it already start? Am I crazy here? What do you think about this current team that's coming up? Can they surpass what this team did?
So everything with spring just wrapped up over the weekend. Was at the spring game as well. Saw plenty of spring overall. Spoke to the people that were able to see the private portions of practice because they don't let us as media see the private portions. Bobby, I'll say this. That offense is going to be very explosive. Those receivers, explosive. They can get downfield. Just deep receiver room, extremely talented running back room. The offensive line, do I think they take a bit of a step back in terms of pass protection? Yes. But I do think they could be better at run blocking than the previous group, which is really surprising. And defense, still really good, actually. As a matter of fact, I think the linebacker group has gotten better from last year. So that's a nice change. I still have concerns about the tight end thing, but I think the type of offense that Shannon Dawson runs, and with Darian Mensah and his skill set and these receivers Miami has, if Miami's not a team this upcoming season that averages over 40 points per game in the college football season, I would be shocked. So in terms of expectations for them, they should be a playoff team. That should be the expectation going forward. They've reached that point. They don't need to hit the transfer portal in mass amounts like they've had in the past. They're more so doing cherry picking now because they're so confident in their evaluations of guys they've taken from a root level standpoint, like guys that have been with the program from day one.
I want to ask you this, and Sammy, forgive me, you jump in if you want. I just want to say, and first off, shout out to everybody watching right now. We got a great crew watching. We got people in the comments, mostly talking about Monday Night Raw, DSG. Come on now, you're spoiling it. My son's supposed to tell me everything. We got Adrian of the Rainy Day Podcast, another great guy with great shows. You got Canes, you got Dolphins, you got Heat, you got wrestling, you got everything on Adrian Rainy Day Podcast. So check him out. But you bring up next year's team, Mansa, and I probably butcher that because I do. Man, I'm excited about seeing Mark Fletcher. You know, I want to see him in his year, in his year. I really want him to come out this year. That was a guy like, I don't care. I love Devon Achen. I'm a Devon Achen guy. You do not trade Achen. You work him out. You extend him. But I'm still, and I love Ollie Gordon. As I say, Geo, Ollie freaking Gordon. That's what I say for the Dolphins. But man, if you could get a Mark Fletcher, you go get him. But what was I going to say? Miami, I have to ask you this with the Canes, because you're right? I mean, but they've done so well with the transfer portal, especially at quarterback, getting Mansa now, which is bigger, I think, and better. You know, you got Cam Ward, you got Carson Beck, now you got Mansa. Is that the trend we should expect with the Canes going forward? Or is there a guy that they've gotten from recruiting that could be that next big thing for Miami at quarterback?
Well, they just landed a 5-star quarterback for the first time in Mario's tenure here at Miami just a couple weeks back. in Israel Abrams from the Chicago area. So definitely a nice little change there, because there was some narratives of other fans or rivals saying that, oh, Miami can't get a high school quarterback, they can't get a big time star or whatever, and they just did. So that narrative's kind of been stumped. They used to call Mario Cristobal the QB killer, but I don't think that's necessarily the case when you see what Cam Ward did, the success Carson Beck had, and then now you have Darian Mensah coming in now, and how well he's playing early on too, throughout spring camp, and then now they'll be getting ready for fall in a couple of months. However, in terms of like them going after a transfer quarterback again, I think it's going to be an ongoing thing this season where they're going to evaluate the other guys, the backups, and kind of see where the progression is with those guys. They got a young quarterback who improved this offseason in Luke Nickel. And then they got the 5-star coming in, and they got a promising true freshman already there right now. And Darian Coleman has got an extremely talented arm. But for the most part, they'll evaluate that. That decision will be made as the season progresses. Is there a chance that they don't go after a transfer quarterback again? Yeah, I think there's a chance. However, if you have 3 quarterbacks back to back to back with tremendous success from the transfer portal, it's hard to turn down if a guy who threw for 3,700 yards or 4,000 yards the year before and 30-something touchdowns, to turn that down rather than, someone that's within the system already. It's very tough to do. Very, very tough to do. So it's more so a wait and see at this point.
I'm going to ask you, it probably doesn't lead to anything, or you could surprise, but if there's one guy out there in the nation, like if you like, oh, maybe next year he'll be in the transporter, is there that one guy you're like, man, if Miami can land him after this next season? Is there that one guy for you?
Well, like in terms of recruiting?
Like a guy, like kind of like a Mensa. I'm going to say that right this time, but like, is there a guy that you like right now? We have that 5-star guy, and you're right. They should evaluate, but is there a guy like you go, maybe not? There's no inside stuff, but is there a guy that you look at and go, ooh, if when Mensa leaves, that's the guy I would love for them to target?
Absolutely. I just thought about it really well right now. The quarterback that's currently at California right now, Jaronku Sagapalo, a Samoan kid, lefty. I'm sure Dolphins fans are having like some bad flashbacks right now of Tua, but
Samoan left-handed is like, nope, we're done, we're good, let's move on. No, just
I highly suggest people watch this kid at California right now. He plays for the California Golden Bears. Was a true freshman last year, extremely talented. That would be a dream scenario, like a guy like him, or maybe the kid that's at Maryland, Malik Washington, who was also a true freshman last year. Those 2 guys are really exciting.
There you go. I love it. All right. So Dolphins draft, we talked about a lot of Canes. Okay. But I know you're familiar with a lot of players around the league, and like you said, Dolphins, your brothers are Dolphin fans. You follow Miami, but you're an all, you follow all teams, like especially if there's a lot of Canes on that team. But with Miami and being like kind of an unbiased opinion, right? You brought up Monster Delane. What are some other players that when you think about Miami's draft, you're like, this might be a good player for Miami? Whether that is offensive line, defensive line. What are some players that you think like, hey, if any one of these guys, Miami could fix their team, these are some guys they should look at? Maybe not all Hurricanes, but are there some guys that you'd be like, I'd like to see these guys in a Dolphins uniform?
I think, honestly, we mentioned one earlier, like Makai Lemon. I think you asked me in my opinion, I think it's very close between him and Jordan Tyson as the 2 best receivers in this class. I'll be honest, I think the Dolphins should stay away from Carnell Tate. Seen some things on tape that like when the competition rises up, he kind of doesn't play up to that level. There's been questions about that, like, is the success that Carnell Tate had, is it because of Jeremiah Smith? Like, is it because he has less pressure on him and everything? There's a lot of questions there, but I think Makai Lemon is legit. I like Jordan Tyson as well for the Dolphins. I just don't think they should take those guys at 11. Maybe if you get a trade like into like the middle of the first round or like somewhere in that 20 range, I think that's a good spot. But at 11, I think that's pushing it. For those type of guys, they're not, to me, I don't see those guys in the caliber like a Jeremiah Smith, like 100% top 10 guy that you can't miss.
Yeah, you take him. You don't even think about it.
Yeah, I just don't see those guys as that, but I think Mekhi Lemon could do really good things for the Dolphins. At cornerback, Mansour Delane, as we spoke about. I was also really big on Jermon McCoy. It's just unfortunate with the injury stuff. Let me see. In terms of other positions for me, well, I actually like Falk from Auburn. I think he put up some good tape. I think TJ Parker from Clemson is a guy that, maybe not getting a lot of love because he kind of had a down year with Clemson, but I think there's some value there. Maybe if the Dolphins could somehow sneak him in the second round, I think there's a lot of value in a guy like TJ Parker from Clemson.
I love that. I want to ask you, talking about receiver. And first off, I hear you on the Carnell Tate thing. And I think it's funny that you brought that up because that was something that Josh Wingate, again, co-host of the Fins Talk Draft Show here on FTSN, was bringing up about Tate. There's some things to like about Tate, and I understand why he's on the top of most people's boards. But one thing he brought up, and that you kind of just echoed right now, was that one of his biggest concerns was Tate was never a number one guy. That he's been with a couple other receivers minus Jeremiah Smith, and he never was the number one guy. And if you're taking him in the top 10, you're taking him as a number one guy, but he's never done that. Now I understand no one's going to be a number one guy with Jeremiah Smith in the fold. Smith is, I think everyone could say that, and we're Malachi Tony guys, but no one said Jeremiah Smith is, the top. But so I get it, but at the same time, all the points you've brought up, hammer on the head. But I want to ask you, because following Miami, we are very familiar with Louisville. What are your thoughts on Chris Bell? This might be a round 2 option.
I think a lot of value there. I think also I had no idea how fast this kid was until he played against Miami. For a kid with and he's built really well too.
He looks like a freaking linebacker.
I would say physique wise, he kind of reminds me of not play style, but just physique, how he's built. Very similar to AJ Brown, the way he's built. Just very thick, physical guy.
Mine was Anquan Bolden. I thought you were about to take it. I was like, oh, is he going to say it again? To me,
Anquan, I could see that too.
But yeah, AJ Brown, that's a great comp in regards of the look of him. But yeah, man, that's what I know. One thing, when you watch the film, watching the game, you obviously see it. But if you watch the film, again, a guy who's built like a Brink truck, speed like Speed Racer. He's a player. He's a dog. That's a guy who I could see who you take in the second round, and he should have been probably a round 1 guy. I really do love his potential. Another one I think you might know, be more familiar with, especially when you brought up McCoy, is Brazel out of Tennessee, wide receiver Brazel. Big, fast. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for a vertical threat as a piece, as an X receiver, I think he fits that very well for the Dolphins. However, I think for what they have with Achane and everything, I think you want to stay explosive. To me, I think Mekhi Lemon is if you want a specific receiver in this class, and it may be tough because of how everything's positioned, which I think Dolphins should try to find a way to get back in, whether it's using that 30th pick or using partially the second round, trying to move up a little more again aside from the number 11 pick. Just find a way. I think he would be the absolute perfect pick as a secondary of the first round. But Chris Brazel, though, like I said, nice vertical threat. Yes, bigger receiver. I don't know if I like him specifically for the Dolphins, though.
I love the answer. I appreciate that. I always tell people, just be honest with your thoughts, and I think that's awesome. Again, Mekhi Lemon. Miami's shown a lot of interest in Mekhi Lemon. Pro day, scouting combine. I know a lot of people make a joke about the press conferences and all that. But again, you're getting a playmaker. You're getting a guy who's gonna, you want that in your locker room. You want a guy, we all get sick of divas, but sometimes it's good a little bit. I don't want to say he's a diva. Maybe somebody's calling a diva right now, Casey Concepcion, who's Sammy's number 1 receiver. But he had that letter come out saying, I'm the best receiver in the draft. Don't miss out on me. that might turn off some people. I like that. It's confidence. What do you think of that?
I like Concepcion. However, all right, I think he's very dangerous, like within the game and intermediate. I have questions about him as like a downfield threat. I do think he's definitely a nice tool to have on offense, like in terms of like he has versatility. You know, he could play some outside, he could play a little bit in the slot. You could even put him in the backfield too. There's a lot of versatility he has, but that is the one question I have with him is the long speed. Like, I think that's a component that's missing from his game.
Sammy.
Concepcion has a little yellow water into him. That's what I like him. So we talked a little before about the wide receivers. I still have post-traumatic syndrome with the Dolphins picking wide receiver because Water was okay, but other than that, Devontae Parker was just horrible. Ted Ginn was, good as a returner, but never a great wide receiver. I think the best wide receiver the Dolphins picked in the first round when Chula was here was O.J. McDuffie. Other than that, Water was okay, but we ended up being traded. So at 11, I would not take a wide receiver for sure. Trading up from 30th, probably, but I still would not like for my first pick overall to be a wide receiver. I think the Dolphins, we started coming from the Packers. I'm not saying the same blueprint applies to the Dolphins, but I think someone that feels very confident about finding wide receivers and cornerbacks probably in the second or third round. So I don't expect them to go high. Where the ball will have to fall extremely badly for the Dolphins, even though finding a way to trade back for the Dolphins to take a wide receiver at 11. So I see some fans that basically want wide receiver, but the most fans that I've seen on everywhere, on social media, whatever, or the ones that Jones in the chat usually don't want a wide receiver. So I think we're safe at 11, but we'll have to wait and see for Thursday night.
I just look over here. I see I got a text message from my wife. It says, "You want Wingstop?" I'm like, "Say less." Yes, please. I mean, damn. I got distracted. I was like, "Say what?" But yes, some Wingstop, please. That would be amazing. I'm a chicken wing guy. But I love
that sandwich is good. That chicken sandwich is good also. So don't miss on the chicken sandwich also.
No, dude, no. But I am a chicken wing guy. Like if you Gio, I'm a picky eater, so let's say straight out, get to know each other a lot better than we already do. But so when I go to a restaurant, when my first thing I look for is either if is a steak, nice good roundhouse steak, and with fries, and then chicken wings, or if it's less and less, it's like, hey, chicken tenders. What's your favorite dish, my man?
Ooh, favorite dish. All right, so if we're talking about like Hispanic wise, because I'm Cuban,
the best food in the world.
I'm either going with a Cuban sandwich or how do I say this again? All right, so basically the skirt steak with white rice. So like bistec, oh man,
with onions, right?
Yes,
a little bit of vinegar, and some garlic.
It's the spot. So that.
And on a sandwich too. And on a sandwich too is great.
Yeah. So, and the other one is because I like Italian food a lot. It's the oh man, I'm forgetting the name now. It's a specific meat sauce that they do, and I'm totally skipping my mind now. But yeah, it's specific meat sauce that they do, and then you put the rigatoni with it and everything. And then not just like small little shaved cheese, but like just, like the sheets of cheese. Like they'll be about that size and they're right on top of the pasta and everything. Just perfect. But it's called bolognese. Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to say, all right, so I'm a picky eater, right? Especially when you live in Tennessee, they got every Mexican restaurant in the world. They don't have Cuban. They don't have Puerto Rican. It's just Mexican. Oh, there's a new restaurant. What is it? It's Mexican. I was like, geez, a Lou. So now I've had all type of dishes. I am half Puerto Rican and then my mother's white. So I got the Italian, the Polish, but my stepdad is Cuban, so I grew up in a Cuban house. My favorite food is Cuban. There's a place up here in Tennessee. I got to drive about 30 minutes out. It's called Back to Cuba. Ropa black beans and rice, Cuban coffee, all Cuban sandwich. Oh, I love it. I love it. That is my favorite dish. But yeah, I'm a picky. So I like to ask those type of questions because kind of loosen up, my man. Try to just get to know us a little better. Something I usually ask in East 10th Street boys, and I would love to get you on that because that's a little more loose and a lot more fun. And but I want to ask you that. So I want to get this for you. That's with me and Alex. I think you met Alex before in one of the shows. But weird smell, right? There's always that smell that you're not supposed to like or other people don't like, but you do enjoy it. What's one of your favorite weird smells?
That's a tough one, actually.
Yes, that's a tough one.
Well, I mean, I would say my wife's cooking, but I don't like that smell too much. Gasoline.
I'll say this actually. I don't know why, but it's like I guess like this, not necessarily like the smell. All right, so nickels, no, not nickels. Pennies smell weird, but like any type of other coin, like some people say they're like, oh no, it smells strange. Like I've never thought that like a quarter or anything like smells strange. I'm like, it's just kind of smells normal. Like kind of just smells like metal basically. But yeah, no, pennies, don't like the smell of that, but quarters and like nickels and like dimes because it's
that's new. I've never heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's never.
I was just playing. She said she's not going to buy the wings. Now she told me to eat peanut butter and jelly. I was just playing with you. I don't know why you got to get all offended. Damn. No, again, all right. Sounds gasoline, right? I mean, we all the AC unit. That's always, I don't know why when the AC first turns on, fresh, But yeah, that's some of the things. Great. Now he's going to block me. So yeah, Tatiana there, Geos, that's my wife, I live life on the edge, brother. You know what I mean? I mean, hey, you only live once, right? Dateline. No, just playing. She
no wing stop.
No wing stop.
No wing
stop tonight, buddy.
I'll get it. I'll beg it later. But anyway, no, but Gio, I definitely would love to get you on East 10th Street Boys. We talk about everything on there, South Florida, but growing up in South Florida, life, questions like that. So I'd love to get you on there, my man. And, you get to be laid back and just have fun. And we'll talk sports as well. Of course we will. But, I'd love to get you on that. We'll talk more about that. DSG says, I actually like the smell of gas. I believe that, DSG, based off all the comments you post on every show, on every one of our shows. I believe that, my brother. But here, what's going on in FTSN? I'll just throw it out here first again. Well, for me, it's a nonstop week, like Geo all the time. I was on Saturday and I was on the Rainy Day podcast for WrestleMania. Sunday was doing the draft. Today, Fins Talk Today. Tomorrow, I'll be on with 305 Sports. And then Wednesday, I'll be on the SoFlo Sports Show. Then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we will be covering every round, every pick, every hour of the NFL draft. Yes, Dolphins, but everything. So we'll be doing that. So make sure you tune into that. After that, we'll be continuing our WrestleMania rewind coverage on No Holds Barred. We're doing WrestleMania 7, which is Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan. Josh Kimmel's not watching. He says I'm spoiling it for him. Dude, it's like 50 years old. I'm not really spoiling it, but he gets mad when I say the main event. He goes, no, shut up, because he doesn't remember or he doesn't pay attention, Gio. But anyway, we got a lot of stuff here going on FTSN. So not just Dolphins. We got it all here. So if you love sports, you love Dolphins, Canes, Heat, everything, wrestling, hit that subscribe button. I love you, babe. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to put that finger up. That wasn't cool. You guys can imagine what I just got there on the side. It was nice and beautiful. It's right up there. Sammy, what do we got going on Fins TV?
Well, we're going to be back the week after the draft, of course, next Tuesday after the draft, because, we probably have a lot to talk about. We'll have to wait to see what Sullivan and Hafley and the try game of the whole Dolphins regime had doing during the draft to see. We're going to take the pulse of the fan base. We're going to see where the fan base is going. Of course, we're going to be here with you during the draft, a great coverage on FTSN, so I'm really excited about that.
And of course, again, can't talk enough about CanesWear, FTSN, of course, or Fins Talk Sports and Fins Talk Today, sponsored by CanesWear. Again, you love Hurricanes, Dolphins, Heat, Marlins, anything South Florida, you got to go check out CanesWear at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. If you're anywhere other than South Florida, if you're in Tennessee like me, or we look at Canada like Vincenza, Puerto Rico like Sammy, Delaware, Josh, Texas, Steve, anywhere across the United States, go to CanesWear.com. Get your gear from CanesWear. Brett and the crew do an awesome job. And then also, I'm going to let Geo take, because Geo does this really well, better than me. But also, though, check out, if you love the Miami Hurricanes and you love awesome people and you love what you heard today from Geo, you got to check out Geo, Brett, Mondo. Go check them out on the CanesWear YouTube channel. Awesome stuff. Love what they're doing. Rooting for them. Geo, talk to us about CanesWear. Talk to us about the channel. What do you guys got cooking over there?
Yeah, so NFL draft coming right up this week, Thursday, as you guys mentioned. Maybe a surprise on there, commercial-wise, of CanesWear that people could be looking forward to if you live in the South Florida area. So keep an eye out for that. And CanesWear in general, make sure to download the CanesWear app. You can actually get exclusive rewards and benefits for being on the app. Also, make sure to subscribe, as Bobby said, to the CanesWear YouTube channel, youtube.com/CanesWear. We got the CanesWear TV show, me, Mondo, and Brett, always on multiple times a week. I also do the show with Amon Richards on there. It's called Who Wants Smoke? A ton of people love it. Also, it's an open format. We take questions all the time on these shows. So people love it. They feel involved. And for the most part, I'm not a Dolphin fan per se, but I always want them to do well because I'm from South Florida. I don't have a favorite NFL team, but I do hope that they have a good draft this week. I absolutely do, because I think there's nothing like it, like South Florida, when its teams are at their pinnacle. Like, there's just the history behind it, the history 100%. Behind the Hurricanes, the history behind the Dolphins. Dolphins still, till this day, no one can ever take this away from the Dolphins. Till this day, the only team to run the entire table, never lose a game in an entire season. No one could ever take them away from them, no matter how many times people joke that you guys haven't won a playoff game since the Bush or whatever. It's stuff people don't say. But just overall, the history in Miami, like Miami Heat with the Big Three when they came down and everything. I want South Florida sports to do well. I'm from here, from this area, born and raised. So while I'm not specifically a fan, I do want them to do well. And objectively, you ask me, in my opinion, I like the GM that they have now. So let's see what happens.
Absolutely. Josh, we're going to just pop it in there. Josh doing some great stuff. I'm excited to see what the final result is, guys. If you watching the draft, of course, you watch it on ESPN and NFL Network. But I'm going to tell you, though, do us a favor on the side, especially Dolphin fans or even non-Dolphin fans. Listen in and tune in on YouTube on FTSN. We're going to be live for every hour of the draft, covering every pick. And Josh is working in the background. He's kicking ass. I cannot wait for you guys to see what he's been doing on how we're going to cover this draft. You better eat those leftovers. Chill, brother. Chill. Let me fight this personal battle. I will. She offered the wings. I didn't even know. I was like, okay, But anyway, I might not live the night. Just let you know. No, I'm just playing. She hates when I make jokes like that. But anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody who's tuned in. Again, Geo's not wrong. I love the format of their show. Geo takes the time to answer everybody's question. No stone is left unturned. So if you want that knowledge, you want that insight, Canes insight, things you've been thinking, maybe you're watching TV and you're like, I wish the Canes did that. Why the hell they didn't do this? Or what are they planning here? He's got the info. So make sure you go right now after this show. Do us a favor. Anywhere watching other than YouTube, we see 1,000 people in the room. If you're watching anywhere on YouTube, come on over to Finstock Sports Network, hit that like and subscribe button, then hop over to CanesWear TV, CanesWear YouTube channel, hit that subscription button, because if you're not, you're missing out. So like and subscribe. Now, Dolphin fans, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We see you all in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, and always, no matter what, fins up. See you guys next time.